I'm gonna punch you. Do you know what time it is, Chris?
Is it combat time, Grant?
It's time for combat. Rah! Oh, I'm gonna point a gun at you and get you to do what I want.
That is a lot of build-up for a 4-page chapter.
Yeah, we don't. I like weapons. I like it when they're used on people in my games. I don't like necessarily making that too complicated.
No, let's make it easy for people.
I think the more rules you put in a combat chapter, the slower you make combat.
Yep.
And it needs to be the fastest possible thing. If anything, you want combat to go slightly too fast.
Yep, and we wanted it quick and brutal.
Yeah, for sure, and it is. Like everything's quite quick. Everything's quite quick and brutal in Spire.
It's savage. It's quite terrifying sometimes.
It is. And it's fine. I like to think that it's all the player's fault as well.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to happen to them. They're going to do it themselves. It's like the thing about we don't really have a very complicated combat section. It's 4 pages long. 2 of those are examples.
Yeah.
We've just sort of explained what the weapon tags do a little bit more.
Yeah. Like, literally, you're looking at a fight plus a domain check.
Yeah.
Or sneak if you're feeling fancy.
Yeah, there's no rules for cover, per se. There's no... we assume people are taking cover. There's not, there's no particularly rooms for armour or anything. It all just happens, it's fine.
Yeah.
We'd much rather... I think we spend an almost equal amount of time discussing why to have fights in the GM chapter and why they're fun and how to make them sickening and unpleasant to be part of.
Yeah, and you just need enough to be able to adjudicate them. And, I mean, the entirety of the rules are placed on the players' heads anyway. It's like, make your roll. How did you do? Oh, you did badly? That means they hit you.
And that's... kind of it. We don't have much interesting to say about the Spire chapter.
Combat is the most boring chapter in the book.
Yeah, it's just it's mainly there to clear up because combat works the same as every other mechanic except you inflict stress with it, and the mechanics are there to clear up basically to clear up any arguments.
Yeah,
as it were. Any interesting facts we've got? We've got in the example fight. Helen and Ziz are both players from one of my playtests.
Yep.
Playing their characters. So there you go. That's not a recording of one of my playtests because I play Dominic, which is my friend James's middle name, and I thought it was cool.
Fair.
Yeah. And I think also the example fight. Even then, in the example fight, we play fast and loose with the rules. Yeah,
but I'm not as fast and loose, but yeah.
No,
I think one of the interesting things to pick up, though, is how range works.
Oh, why?
Because, as we say, we've got 3 ranges, melee, ranged, and extreme range. And extreme range is going to be used very rarely.
I've never used it.
But when you do use extreme range, it's extremely effective.
Yeah, and it's important?
Yes, it's important to have. It's one of those rules like armour. Like, armour is a huge game changer if you're in a fight.
Yeah.
It means you don't necessarily just die.
Yes, that's true, because it's very easy to get super hurt quite quickly.
Yeah, when you consider that moderate blood fallout can happen from a 6.
Yeah.
And you're rolling generally, I mean, you'll be rolling a D6 against...
You're getting D6 stress if you're fighting anyone who means business, and D8 if they really mean business.
Yeah, so you can go the hell down from a sword blow.
Yeah, which is kind of like we wanted fighting to be either your last resort or something which you really prep for.
Yeah, you don't just go, oh look, let's have a Barney.
Yeah,
you have a bar brawl where you're chucking D3s and.
Yeah.
And whatnot, but if the second knives are drawn, that's actually something you need to think about.
And it's it's not necessarily we didn't want to be edgy and super realistic about it, I guess, but we wanted someone having a knife to be exciting.
Yeah.
Basically. I think there's
I think that's the combat chapter.
There's nothing to say, Chris. It just happens. We don't really like writing rules which aren't exciting, and combat rules aren't generally. Character powers, those are exciting.
Even when we were designing the combat chapter, as it were, We designed the basic Spire rolls.
Here's a little hit view. It's very much the last thing we wrote in the book.
Yeah. We designed the basic Spire rolls, the basic mechanics.
Sorry, I think we wrote it, and you were like, "Should we have a combat section?" Oh shit, yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, and literally, it just came out of those basic mechanics.
Yeah, it just happened. It does its thing. It doesn't need its own system.
Wait, it does. It needs those clarifications.
Oh, sorry. It does stress, but it doesn't necessarily need like hit points as opposed to binary states that you get in D&D.
No, that's true.
For example. Yeah. Bye.
That was combat.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the setting part of the book. Like this is one of the biggest bits of the book. I'm not sure whether it's the longest, but it certainly contains the most words.
Yeah.
It was a challenge to write this, if I'm honest with you, because I don't really like writing setting. Actually, let me rephrase that. I like writing setting, but I get very nervous that I'm doing it wrong and that I'm just sort of boring people and talking about my 12th level paladin. So invariably, I'll just hint at setting or intimate setting through D10 tables. And so this was a new one for me. I think it was a new one for Chris as well.
Oh, for sure.
And so it was a challenge to write, and I think it came out okay initially. And my apologies if we mentioned this before. My memory isn't brilliant, but we wrote the setting chapter up as it was on like 4 levels of detail, where at the top level you just had the name of the skill, the name of the domain which was sort of used in the area. And then we had a brief description of it. And then we had places in there. And then we had NPCs in there who were in those places. And the idea was that you could read as much or as little as you wanted. And it was bad.
It was 2,500 pages of not very good.
It was astonishingly long. Like, okay, listen. It was useful, but it would be useful if we were writing a one-shot about just that one place, not a campaign game about the whole city. So I did that for Derelictus, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I did that, and then I realised that this was 1, a lot of words, and 2, I was sort of building redundancies into the book out of fear, I think.
Yeah, and it definitely works better with this shorter, punchier prompt system of the history of Spire. Prompt. Yes, it does that. We didn't want to focus, on the history. We wanted to focus on what's happening now and more on like what's likely to happen tomorrow. So we wanted to talk about people who want things, and people. And like, if we wrote in an NPC, the idea was that there should be someone who can kill you or you can subvert. We didn't really want anyone who was just sort of present and nice. Yeah.
So
tried to keep away from that as best as possible.
Let's us be present and nice and talk about academia.
Yes, and the Benevolent Order of Wisdom and Discovery.
So there is a gag at the start of this chapter. There's the Benevolent Order of Wisdom and Discovery. There's also the Sisterhood of the Unlidded Eye and the College of the Undying Light. And they are all fighting each other, and they are all full of demonologists.
Yeah.
The gag is that there's a free school, and they bring you in, and they slowly blackmail you until you're performing demonological rites for them. And we wanted this to be a lead into demonology, which is something which Chris has been interested in demonology for a while, actually.
Yeah, and it's something I really wanted in the book, and it was a difficult thing to kind of mesh with our vision of Spire, because we could have just put in demons and be done with it. Yeah. But it didn't feel right.
No, I think as well, like, we didn't want to have an alternate plane of reality where demons come from, but like we didn't want to have it like a place you could go.
No, we didn't want this to become plane hopping.
No, and we also didn't want the demons to have like really strong personalities or motives or drives. We wanted to have them as something more alien and weird, almost like I suppose Lovecraftian.
Yeah,
is the level of demons we're dealing with here. I'm pretty proud with what we managed to do. Like we don't really have much in the way of rules for it in the main book. There are some rules in Black Magic, one of the source books, which should be available on the website soon, or maybe you'll already have it. But it was certainly a challenge to write demons and have them as flexible and as exciting as they need to be, but also have them as horrendously punishing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And we wanted them to be horrendously punishing. We wanted them... Whereas occult magic itself is fairly dangerous to use. We wanted demonology to be incredibly so.
Incredibly dangerous. And also just we did some looking into... I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Goetic?
I believe it's Goetic, but I've always said Goetic because I like how it sounds better.
Goetic or Goetic demonology, and how the majority of demons you'd ring them up and you'd ask them a question, or you'd beseech them for skill. It wasn't like, I want you to go and wreck my enemies. It was more like, hey, what's my enemy afraid of? And so we wanted to have more of a vague relationship with them, where you'd have them it was more that you'd contact them as a mate who would do things for you.
Yeah.
But then they asked. It's basically like asking a demon to help you move.
And best you don't fall out with them.
Yes, precisely. Or you'll suffer fallout.
Oh,
ooh, nice. But we are talking too much about demonology, I think, because it's not really in this book. The other, I suppose, interesting thing is that we wanted to. It's probably worth mentioning here. The Elfia use demonology as nuclear weapons.
Yes, they've weaponized it,
and they've managed to get a thing where they implant a song in your head, which makes you work as a sort of blood-powered magic circle, which they can summon demons through. And when we say summon demons, it's opening a dimensional rift. So it's not like you get a legion of black armored horned dudes who come up with axes, but just reality doesn't.
Yeah,
and reality doesn't in a really explosive way.
That other place just impinges for a while, and that's why we call it an incursion.
I guess it's kind of close to the elemental plane in D&D.
Kind of.
The plane of positive energy, where if you go there, you just pop.
Yeah,
because there's so much. There's so much happening. You're overloaded with hit points. It's that sort of thing in that reality just doesn't. And so we've got some rules for that, which is fun. And it is a way of taking out a neighborhood if you need to.
A large area.
Yeah, you can just suck a large area out of existence. We also, on the subject of weird technology, the academic stuff. We find it quite difficult to set stuff. I certainly find it difficult to set adventures in academia. It lacks a certain cut and thrust for me. Yeah,
it's not very swashbuckly.
No,
if you know what I mean. It doesn't have that action feel to it.
We did our best to put some swashbuckling in here, but the academia. I think it's fair to say it wasn't really our focus on going into the game. We were more interested in just sort of places where people live and places where people go to enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
But we've got academia gave us, one of the nice things about academia is it gave us the opportunity to explore weirder things. We've got the heart for if we want weird things from within Spire, or within Spire. But academia lets us import shit from outdoors.
Yeah, so lets us mess with conspiracies and that sort of higher tier stuff rather than just a gribbly monster.
Yes, hence the intelligence, which is ancient technology you jam into your brain, and then you can have any answer to any question as long as you don't mind being comatose for D6 days.
Yeah, you got a 360 board modem. It's just very, very slow.
It's jammed in your brain.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, we haven't told any stories about that, but I think there's definitely some interesting stories to be told.
Yeah, for sure.
Implanting what amounts to. I actually I uncovered my first notes on the intelligence yesterday. When so Chris and I were reading through some old rule books, looking for some inspiration for more work on Spire, and the intelligence shards. The Brazacott who built them, they realised that their god that the gods were too far away and couldn't be talked to or bargained with, so they built a god out of crystal and buried it under the earth, and then started worshipping it. And then something happened to the Brazacott. We're not entirely sure. And the first draft of the intelligence was it's shards of their god. which you're pushing into your head. And I think now it's basically a big-ass computer.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the idea that they tried building a god. I've always loved the idea of an underground race, like dwarves, for example, who decide to build a mechanical god.
Yeah, forging it themselves.
There's something quite pleasing about that.
For sure, yeah.
But we'll move on to the High Elven University of Divine Magic, where we get to do the weirdness of High Elves and the weirdness of academia, just jammed together.
Mash them together, yeah.
Yeah. So, I wrote most of the book, and like generally the way it would work, Chris and I would meet and we would sketch out some ideas for a section. For setting, we wrote all the rules together, looking to document. But as far as the setting goes, because it didn't really seem worth like Chris staring at it while I wrote it, I'd go away and write most of this, and then we'd come back and read through it and tweak stuff, and he'd say, "Grant, you'd use the word
all about."
Yeah, that sort of thing. You take out some of my colloquialisms. And,
of which there were thousands, it turns out.
I find it easier to write.
That's
fair.
And
the High Elven University of Divine Magic is one of Chris's, so Chris went off and did the groundwork on this one and then handed it back to me, and I punched it up. So would you like to discuss part of what makes you interested about this divine place?
Well, the big thing for me was that the High Elves have access to all of this money and all of this power, and yet they're still very religious creatures.
Yeah.
So it dawned on me that they would have this drive for more knowledge of the divine, and thus need somewhere to study it and really work from. And that's where the Divine Magic University comes from. And it allowed us, as you say, to combine the insanity of the Aelfir with the Spire-like insanity of dealing with the religions.
Yeah, like high-level divine stuff.
Yeah. So you've got
like,
things like a telescope that looks down.
Yeah, used to
at
look
the
up,
heart.
now it looks down. We never made it quite clear how it looks into the heart, 'cause surely there's stuff in the way.
Yes, but it's that sort of telescope.
Ah, okay, right.
I mean, if you look at the picture of it, it doesn't look like a normal telescope.
No, it doesn't. It looks like a bit of a mirror. The thing which interested me as well is like you doubled down on the lunar font.
Yep.
Which is a place where where moonlight is collected and turned into liquid, and this is heresy to Dark Elves, because like the moon is their goddess, or their goddess lives on the moon, or like
or something.
She does that thing that like she is powerfully related to the moon.
Yep, and they're siphoning it off and distilling it into solid matter.
Yeah, which is kind of a fun thing to do, but also you'll see later as well. We've got the substance called Spire Black, which is generated in the works, and it's kind of a like flammable and eventually explosive sort of city phlegm that forms around industry, and we kind of put that in there as an anachronism to cover the fact that, oh, hang on, like where are they getting ink from? Where are they getting gunpowder from? Where are they getting fuel from? Oh, it comes out of Spire Black, of course.
Why, of course.
And so having liquid moonlight, which is used in all sorts of stuff, it gives us kind of almost a generic magical substance which you can hijack or steal.
Yeah, it's pure plot point. Because it's got to be transported to certain locations. The Aelfir Smith down in the works, you can use it if you can get our hands on any of it. I forgot the name. Sun and Water. And obviously, as you say, you can hijack it and use it for your own purposes. Don't explain what it does, of course, but
yeah. Next up, we have Gwyn Enfor. Now, Gwyn Enfor, roughly translated through our cobbled-together version of Welsh, means big gun.
Subtle.
Very subtle.
Yeah, much like the humans.
Yeah, I think the humans come from fantasy Cornwall and fantasy Wales, but it's separated by a big ocean. So I assume Spire takes place in upside down America. I guess
because why not?
That's how it would work. And like back in the day, humans were kind of a playable class, and like a playable race even. And then we sort of turned them into a class. So you'd play someone from the human university of Gwyn Enfor, who was a gunslinger, but they just didn't gel with the rest of the group, so we cut them and sort of divvied up their powers between the rest of the classes. Like this is more of a this is a place where you can find weird stuff, and I think like we've implied that there's lots of weird stuff coming here. There's a computational division, there's volatility research, and also they make regular trips into the heart to go and pull stuff out.
Yeah, it gives you a good base for the human,
Yeah.
for the important humans of the old campaign.
Yeah.
Because they'll happily work with Elfir, because Elfir have a lot of money.
Yes.
A whole load of machinations can be going on with Gwydenfor, and especially since they're essentially an arms manufacturer.
Basically, yeah. And if you want to have any sort of game about experimental stuff or like fringe science, this is where it will happen. This is the mad science part of the game. And I think everyone needs a bit of mad science, honestly. Like the same way you need a wizard to do weird things, you need a wizard with
the power of galvanics.
With a battery. Galvanics! Apparently, so it's called volatility research, not galvanic research.
Yes.
We weren't super sure what galvanic meant.
We had to be very careful on certain things and do a lot of Googling.
Yes. I will say one thing, just to sort of part the curtains here a little bit. The majority of the time spent working on this book was coming up with names for things.
Yes, which is desperately hard.
Chris and I suck at coming up with names, and like, unlike I think every other part of our work, we're perfectionists.
Yeah,
when it
has
comes
to be
like,
exactly right.
Like, we'll work for 45 minutes on the name of a thing, and like, which we could have spent like much more fruitful time, and like we'll go through and like tear up thesauruses and look through and compare things, and then of course because we've opened up thesaurus.com, then we'll make up fake titles with stupid words, and just sort of have a bit of a joke around for a while.
Yeah, it's terribly focused, our work style.
Yeah, it's not. It's like that Pomodoro, but we do 5 minutes of work every hour.
Yeah.
You know, I think that keeps us unfocused in a way, which produces quality games like Spire in under 18 months.
On schedule, crucially.
Yeah, on schedule. Yeah, on schedule. Well, don't speak too soon. Everything could go wrong. We haven't sent it to the printers yet. Let's move on to commerce.
Let's.
Chris, I love the North Docks.
The North Docks very much feels like home. It was one of the first things that got done for Spire.
Yeah, the Knights were the first thing which I came up with as aside from the fact that you were part of a secret organisation. The Knights were basically the second thing I wrote down, so they've existed longer than the Ministry.
Yeah,
in Spire, and they are a darling we are not prepared to kill.
In no way is that.
No way. They're fun. Like, I think the thing about the North Docks is it's almost like it's like a traditional fantasy setting.
But the thing is, you can easily skew it to the Wild West, but without guns.
Yeah, that's true.
Or, as you say, traditional fantasy setting, or you can use it however you need to.
Let's explain a little bit about the North Docks. It's actually one of the longest bits we've got in the book, mainly because people chose to put their pubs here. Yeah,
and because it's a really good starter area.
Yeah, it has access to let's explain. So 200 year ago, 300, 400 year ago, the Order of St. Boniface was still not sold in that name. I think I could have done better with that. The Order of St. Boniface was an organisation of knights who were sworn honour bound to protect traders and travellers and merchants who came into the city to allow free trade. And it was all super cool and overseen by the council, and everything was thumbs up, or whoever ran Spire at that point. We haven't really made that clear. And then everything went wrong. The High Elves invaded, and by that point the Knights were already starting to come apart. And flash forward 200 years, and now there are about 100 different warring gangs who wear big codpieces and pauldrons.
Just for the shiny kudos.
Yes, they if they wore more armour, wow, they'd be significantly better as player characters.
Yeah, there's even some groups who wear less armour.
Yes, because it's sexy. The knights and playing a knight is fun, and like the knights, and as we mentioned back in the character generation chapter, like you're guaranteed a good time with a knight, even if it's not a good time that you're having. Someone's having a good time nearby, probably the knight. And so the North Docks is something of an anachronism within the rest of Spire, is that it runs a little bit like a fantasy city, in that we have, like, you've got a load of fighters walking around, you've got this kind of feudal system where there's not really a police per se, but there's enforcers, there's not city guards, everyone reports, the knights who guard this street report to the guy who runs the pub, who reports to the woman who lives in a big steamboat.
Yeah, the Duke.
It's not the Duke, who has 2 husbands and 1 wife, called the Duchess. The husbands didn't warrant names. She seems cool.
What, the Duchess?
The Duke. No, the Duke.
Oh yes, both are very cool, honestly.
The Duke has a magical coat. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
She has an enchanted coat, as referenced in the equipment section. And we've got. It's a place to go and have a big rowdy party. But we've also got things like we've got theatre here. We've got the form of de sang, which means of blood in our mangled French, and that means it's a kind of theatre it's improv theatre fought to first blood, which is
as so many things are in the North Docks.
Yes, everything's fought to first blood. We have theatre, we've got sports, we have like tourneys to watch, we have entertainment, and it's kind of a popular low rent entertainment district.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, you actually get people coming to the North Docks for a party.
You like Solace, don't you?
I like Solace because Solace is the only place in the entire book that is completely fine. Solace is a temporary home for people who are having problems, and there's no cultists.
Nope.
There's no ulterior motives. It's just a nice place.
I'm gonna, you know what? Throughout this whole commentary, I've been keen to not say, hey, this is canon, this is right, this is wrong. This is canon. There is nothing wrong in Solace. No one is up to anything.
You can put anything else you want in any other place. Solace is a genuinely nice place in the North.
If we find out you've messed up Solace, we'll come around.
We'll come around and have words.
Yeah, big words. We don't know any big words. I'm sorry, I was trying to impress you.
Yeah, sorry.
We've also got so like towards the end as well. We've got the Wizened Weasel, the Last Leg, and the Carmine Scepter, which are the backer suggested bars for this place, and they are, like, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of happy with all of them.
Yeah, I love them all.
Fun.
In fact, the last 4 entries in this chapter are all bars, and all weapon shops, because we've got the Sanderson's Arms, which is essentially our version.
Yes, basically, a man who nailed his own arms to the sign outside his shop.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I kind of want to mention this because Sanderson uses he's human, which is interesting. He's a human knight,
yep,
which is rare. But he's got sliver technology in his arms, and sliver technology was something which I envisaged would be much bigger back when we started writing Spire. So sliver is these sort of like scintillating metallic shards, which come from the home nations of the Drow. And when I was envisaging Drow technology, I wanted it to be weird and old and slow and misunderstood and more magical than human technology.
Yeah.
And so slivers are these basically magical rocks which are magically treated in some way, and they're sharpened, and then you jam them into your spine, and it does stuff to you. And so we had ones which mean you no longer feel hunger, ones which sharpen your and strengthen your knuckle bones for punching, that sort of thing. And Sanderson has these in him, and I think we mentioned them in precisely 2 other parts of the book.
Yeah,
but there's no rules for him.
He's also the only point at which we say, yeah, you can get replacement arms.
Yeah, you can get replacement arms. Actually, no, sorry, that's not true. Garrick the Steelboned, the backer god, has rules for replacing your leg with a robot leg.
Yes, but that's a robot leg.
That's true, yes.
This is a replacement arm, grey, white, and hugely muscled.
Oh yeah, you can grow them. Yeah. Well,
Who
there we
knows?
go. That's a thing that happened.
Yeah. But the point is, like, that's illustrative of how we wanted to write the book, like, as plot points rather than a long and tedious history.
Yeah, and I also think as well, like, one of the you lose a lot of the fun of magic if you explain it. You lose a lot of the fun of this fascinating mystical world once you start writing down and pointing out where the limits are. So if we can carry on having guys in here who were just like, yeah, I got these vat-grown arms and they're studded with technology you've never heard of, and I just own a shop. Like, it keeps the weird there, which I like. I think that maybe we ironed quite a lot of that out to make the book more readable, but I'm glad we left some bits in.
Yeah, it's dotted about here and there.
Yeah. We've also got these inns at the end. As I said, I'm chuffed with all of them. They're all kind of fun. I think my favourite one is the last leg because it is a boat. It is a boat which they it's a sunken boat, and then the crew get into other boats and go and steal beer from other places, then bring it back and drink it.
They're essentially Viking publicans.
Pirates, I think, is the
yeah, but like land raids.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of a fun theme. It was interesting working with the backers, like, to try and generate stuff which gelled with the setting. Yeah, and I think I'm glad we had marks, so people you could take advantage of, bars where you could go and get a drink, or a god. And the gods sold most because you got a drawing with them and that guaranteed rules.
Yep.
And made us a significant amount of money. So thank you very much for backing those. Very kind.
For sure.
But it was certainly fun to try and take someone's idea and work with it to mesh it into our world. But let's move on, because we have quite a lot of commerce left.
Yes, there's a whole bunch of it.
There's the Sky Docks, which it's not as developed as the other places, if I'm honest with you. We left it up to, like, you go there to find weird stuff. You go there if you want to buy something and you're running an Spire campaign, so like in Perch or New Heaven.
Or you're after something very exotic.
Yeah, or you want to see a sky whale.
Yep.
Do you want to see a sky whale?
Which the image does wonders with.
Yeah.
It looks super gross.
I love sky whales. I didn't want them to look like whales.
No.
I wanted them to be really, I wanted it to be things that are so creepy you almost rather not look at them.
And Adrian has done wonders making that a reality.
Yeah, it doesn't look real. I like it. It's got quite a nice face. It's got quite a nice head on it, which I like. So I think so the Sky Docks was more of a place to talk about the logistics of Spire. In that people use giant crows a lot to move up and down it. There's lifts, there's stairs, and there's giant crows.
Yeah.
And it's easier to fly down on a giant crow. It's cheaper to go down on a giant crow than it is to go up, because you generally need like 2 or 3 to get you up. Where
especially if you've got luggage.
Yeah, you can glide down on one.
Yeah.
And I think we referenced the elf here, gliding down on 80 to 100 songbirds. Is that another one we've got? Just throw that in there.
Just throwing money away.
Yeah, why not? Just landing and killing the songbirds and then walking off. We've also got the Corvid Court, which I'm surprised Chris let me leave in. I
like the Corvid Court.
Yeah, good.
I do.
I think I like it. I wrote it. You know, I'm chuffed with it. I wanted to have the crowsmen who run the Corvid, I suppose, the rookeries, actually. The rookeries might well, or the crowery.
Crowery doesn't really work.
That's a horrible phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wanted them to be weird and sort of isolationist and odd and superstitious, and also I was on holiday for quite a while in the north of England with only a laptop to keep me company. So I just started writing, and the Corvid Court has no rules for it, and there's nothing there, and it's far too long, and it sticks out like a sore thumb, but I'm really happy with it. in that it gives you... I think it gives you more of a taste of what these weirdos are like. And then if you want to have a fun scene where it's like, oh, hang on, we've got to get down quickly. Oh, okay, let's go talk to the crowsman. You're right there, like a proper sort of weirdo in the back of a pub sort of thing.
Yeah, and
they all carry shotguns, which is fun
because they're strange and dangerous.
Well, they got to shoot down rival crows. We also got to put a load of weird gods in here, which is my favourite. We have Plur.
Plur is wonderful. Plur is a giant toad called Plur.
Yeah, he's a god, and he lives at the centre of a city called Plur. Or Plur? I don't know. He's got an umlaut over his name.
No, it's Plur.
Plur. That's the name. That's the noise he makes.
Plur.
Plur. Plur's great. I like him a great deal. and it's always nice to write daft gods down. I think I just want to do that for my next book.
But the Skydocs was one of the reasons the Skydocs was created was to give us an access point for other parts of the world.
Yeah.
If we ever wanted to be able to fill in the map, essentially.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
You needed multiple ways in and out of Spire. And the Skydocs was one of those. We have land docks with the Blue Port. We have water docks with the North Docks.
Yeah,
and Sky Docks with the Sky Docks.
And we didn't want the Sky Whales to be they're not planes, they're not even Zeppelins. Like they tend to not go in the right direction. They're not very good. They're very slow, and they're not very they can be shot down quite easily.
Yep.
With like siege weapons.
It's essentially like trying to transport yourself with a cow.
Yeah, but a cow that's a bus.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, it's like charging into battle on a cow that's a bus. It's not a great idea.
No.
And it's like we wanted them more as a means of getting off the city rather than we're going to mount a raid on the council with Sky Whales.
Yes, dirigibles they are not.
It would take about 3 months. Now crows, that's a different idea.
Yeah, crows, go for it.
Strap yourself to a crow and jump off a Sky Whale. Now we're talking. In fact, that should be the end of your next campaign, listener. Let's move on to the Blue Docks, the Blue Port. I absolutely adore the art for this one.
It's so perfect. It just shows because the Blue Port is outside. It's a land port
where drow can't go.
The drow can't go, so they've covered it with all these awnings of blue silk because it's the home of the Azurites. And the art just shows beautifully this kind of the baking sun, and then this dark area underneath.
There is something in a cage on the left.
There is.
Not sure what that is. Someone's poking it with a stick.
You'd have to ask Adrian. He's the one that drew it.
Yeah. As we mentioned earlier, AD just draws stuff, and we let him.
It's too good not to.
I assume there's some stuff that he snuck past us that we haven't seen. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't notice that there was something in that cage until it was in the book. So that's fine. But the Blue Docks, the Blue Port is the home of the Azurites, and it's like I remember I went on my holes. Wasn't my holes. I was on a press trip to Turkey. So I've always been fascinated by the appearances of souks and the idea of like a Moroccan covered market. Or I was in Turkey for a press trip, and we went to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, and it just like so dense with detail and so dense with things to buy and all of and obviously a lot of it's tourist like shite, and that's kind of part of the appeal.
Yeah.
Because everything's supposed to be bright and gaudy and colourful, and you can sort of get swept up in it, and it all smells like nice leather. It's a really lovely place in the Grand Market, and so we wanted to try and communicate some of that. I think also we were interested in sort of transferring some of the culture of the desert, where the Azurites are from, to the upwards towards Spire, so we have like kind of a bleed.
Yeah, and also like just having another environment to Spire, because obviously a lot of it's very urban, very city. It's inside, so now we've got a place where it's possible, if you want to run over the top.
Yeah, which looks really cool.
Which looks really cool, but it's out in the sun, so you've got difficulties there. Yeah. And it's a different cultural feel. Yeah. Also,
because it's all temporary. It's all temporary stalls, and all sort of like it's designed to be collapsible and rearrangeable. There's no maps of the Blue Market. Like you have to know where things are. So hiring a guide is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a fun thing to like to sort of have to hire someone to guide you through the market is kind of there's something. What's the word? Fantasy about that, I suppose.
Yeah, and then to kind of put the Elfir stamp on it, the Elfir have a walled-off district in the same area. Because it's one of the main accesses into Spire, the Elfir need access to it as well, but they don't want to deal with the riffraff, so they have a walled-off section where everything's quiet and very different to its immediate neighbour.
Yeah, well, and so I think we put this in. We were interested in having a place where you could go and look at the Elfir and talk to the Elfir without having to go all the way up to Amaranth,
Yeah.
the top of the Spire. And so this gives you quite a good. You can, even if you don't have access to Amaranth, even if you can't, like, even if you wouldn't, people wouldn't allow you to walk in the Upper Spire, you can probably break into the Elfir district and then trick someone into meeting them.
Just jump over the wall. It's not terribly difficult.
Shall we move on?
Let's.
To crime. It's crime time, Christopher.
The crimiest
Ding,
time.
ding, 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 ding. My alarm's gone. My crime alarm's gone. My burglar alarm has gone off. It's crime time.
Many alarms are crime alarms.
Yes, this is a crime alarm. We don't really have a lot of crime districts. We've only got the one.
Yeah, I think that's because a lot of places can have crime in them, but Red Row itself is focused on it.
It's crimey.
Yeah.
And everywhere else, like, some things happen which are pretty similar to Red Row, but they're authorised by the state. So it's not a crime.
Blue-collar crime.
Which is nice. Red Row is your sort of standard wretched hive of scum and villainy. I think is probably the easiest way to describe it. It's in the Undercity. It's kind of, I think it's quite indicative of the Undercity as well.
Yeah, definitely, and it's very closed in and smoky and
claustrophobic.
That's the word. Yes, it's very closed in, smoky, and claustrophobic.
The Red Row is where we invented the Gutterkin.
Yes, I do love the Gutterkin.
So yeah, I was sketching out Red Row, and like the Undercity was one of the first places I wrote up back when I was doing this. I was doing a slightly more in-depth version of the fiction, and I wanted Red Row to be the place where literally every available race shows up. So there's gnolls. I think we also had like an ogre at one point. We mentioned an ogre with a big lizard. Like he was just wandering around shirtless and tattooed, which I thought was fun. But I think I mentioned goblins or something, and you were having none of it.
No,
and like
did not want goblins.
I can entirely understand. Goblins are comedy creatures, and so I eventually, like, we sort of managed to every sort of greasy humanoid or small, grimy, unpleasant, killable humanoid character in Dungeons and Dragons gets lumped under the Gutterkin category.
Yeah.
And it also deals with real the real dregs of society as well, sort of end up in there, and it is it's a pejorative term. Mm-hmm. I'll give it that, but it also means that like it gives us the opportunity to have a little bit of weirdness going around. I don't think I've used them in my games, actually. Come to think of it,
no. But also, if you do want to use them as comedy, you can.
Yes, you can. You can have goblins around, like you can have kobolds, you can have gremlins and nixies, pixies, boggarts, boglins. Can you name a small creature?
Rats.
Well, yeah, but like rats that can talk. Rat boys.
Yeah, rat boys. Like
the Toad Girls. I remember the Toad Girls.
Girls.
Oh, the beautiful Toad Girl. We'll get to her in a bit.
Yeah. But I wanted something that was vermin but intelligent.
Yeah. Yes, and like quite violent as well.
Yeah.
And that you were the one who gave them knives.
Yes.
I remember you describing like as we were trying to pin down the idea of what sort of game Spire was, and you were like, well, it's partially revolutionary, it's partly a horror game, because I can totally imagine getting stabbed and crawling through the Underhive as the Gutterkin close in on you.
Yeah,
and that's pretty horrendous.
Yeah, they're bottom feeders. They're opportunists. So if you are wounded and running through an alleyway, they will try and trip you.
Yeah.
And if not murder and eat you, then at least rob you.
Yeah, for sure. Or like steal like some fingers.
Yeah, just minor bits that they need for their collection.
We've got so Red Row is divided up into there's three important. Actually, there's lots of important bits. Really,
it's quite a large section for one area.
Yeah, there's three sort of factions who run the place. We didn't go into a great deal of depth on the factions, I think, because we didn't want to weigh people down with what happened before. We've got Arena, which is your Commonwealth Garden fighting pit, run by Mother Moon, who is a gnoll, which is unusual. And I think we want to play with the perception of how gnolls are and how they are viewed, and Mother Moon uses that as well.
But interestingly, Mother Moon's a really nice possible patron for the players.
Yeah, very much so.
If you are veering towards that crime angle, she's very powerful. She's going to have a lot of stuff she wants doing.
I'm also happy that some of the equipment mentioned on her harem. How's it pronounced?
I've always pronounced it harem.
Harem member is glitter. And low-cut trousers. We've got Brother Helion's Church of the Gun, which we mentioned in the Extra Advances chapter, and these are like, there to kind of seduce players into joining them and dying.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
or getting into trouble. Valoran Standard, which is the first. That was our first brush against the law.
Yeah,
we hadn't thought about the guards in any way aside from the last guard post before law runs out.
Yeah, and the Valoran Standard is a last bastion place. It's an old warehouse essentially that they've just converted over and are desperately trying to control Red Row. Which isn't going to work, so they're taking bribes left and right.
Yeah, and like back in the earliest draft of this, I had Valoran Standard, and then I had, I think, 2 different NPCs with full stat blocks for Valoran Standard. One of whom was running the place, one of whom was trying to take over, and lead-ins and hooks and everything, and it was such a stodge.
Yeah, it was
so slow to write. So we tidied it up. We've also got L'Enfer Noir, which is I'm just sort of like reading through this Red Row bit. We've just lifted this from everywhere. In that L'Enfer Noir is Moulin Rouge.
Yep.
In the I think on Tim's map he's got a huge air vent with a fan above it, which is a nice touch. Like he got it, and that was a place where like L'Enfer Noir doesn't quite add up in terms of making sense. And that's the thing. Like, it's not like we've got the heart, we've got magic, we've got weirdness, but L'Enfer Noir just lets you be weird.
Yeah.
In a way that like the theatre is weird.
Yeah.
Or especially knights are weird.
When you've got the gentlemen.
Yes, who are from elsewhere and speak in tight, precise voices with ticks and words like music boxes. Don't know where they're from, mate.
Nope.
You got any ideas?
Not a clue.
Haven't a fucking clue.
But it inserts elsewhere into your campaign if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to have that happen, but like if you want something really weird, you can go to L'Enfer Noir.
Again, another good place for patronage and base of operations.
Yeah, very much so. Like they'll hire a room out to anyone. Now, if you flip over the page to page 104,
God, I really hope this is the right numbering for the final draft.
God, yeah. You know, sorry, it probably won't be page 105. If you flip over the page to the drugs bit.
Look at the drugs bit.
Look at the drugs bit. It's huge, the drugs bit, considering how much we write about other stuff. And we don't put any rules in for it.
Nope.
Why was that, Chris?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I think part of it was that we didn't want it to be the equipment chapter.
Yeah.
And part of it is because it's more fun if you interpret it yourself.
I think so, yeah. I think a bit like having the demons as patrons. Like, put it this way, it's very rare that I've seen a book which properly describes the effects of drugs.
Yeah.
Using mechanics, because game mechanics aren't set up to do that. And that's the thing, like, I think if we wanted to describe anything, the game wouldn't feel right. Sorry, let me try that one again. If we wanted to mechanically represent stuff which you and I do all the time, it isn't going to feel correct.
Yeah.
Like we've hit a point in this in this medium where we can have, let's say, for example, in Dungeons and Dragons, you eat a hearty meal and get back your hit points, and that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But because that's shorthand for, oh well, you're going to recover because we want this to move on. Whereas if I got the shit kicked out of me, I think it would take more than maybe like 2-3 sandwiches for me to feel like back at 100%.
A lamb shank's not going to put your arm back on.
No. And every representation I've seen of drugs in role-playing games, the benefits are too impressive, and the come-downs are too hard.
Yeah.
I think it was stimulants in World of Darkness. I think it gave you like +3 physical, like +3 dexterity if you went on if you're on cocaine.
Yeah.
Which is like you should always take that, especially if you're going into a gunfight. And it had this fairly heinous come down. I mean, and in the real world, most drugs make you a bit weird for a while, and then a bit weird in a different way for a while, and sometimes you get addicted to them.
Yeah.
And I think we just we wanted to have. We didn't want to write a huge list of rules about drugs, but we did. But I wanted to. I had a lot of ideas about them, and I think they're also. This goes way back. Ha! This is a deep cut. A man called Steve once wrote a game with Chris. A man called Steve. This was back in our first year of uni, and this was back before either of us really considered ourselves games designers. And so I was back with my parents for the summer, and I got an email from Chris saying, "Hi there, I'm interested. Would you be interested in doing some world building for us? Because we were interested in fixing Dungeons and Dragons."
Oh,
and I mean, we were 20, we were like 19 years old.
It was a formative process.
It was a formative process, and I think we're still trying to do that. I think everyone's just trying to fix Dungeons and Dragons in one way or another. And so Chris asked me to write up some fiction for this, and again, I was 19 at the time, and so I was fairly fascinated with drugs, and still am, as you can tell. But I wrote up this. It was a city called Yerim, which was run by a group called Asarians. And oh, hang on, shit. Sorry, I'm just remembering this now. Asarians were they had bones. So the Asarians, you defined the races. They had bone spurs growing out of their shoulders and out of their skin, and they had auspicious marks could grow in their bone spurs.
Yeah.
And Yerim was it was built around. There was this huge tower in the center of it, Chris. There was this huge tower in the center of it, which the Church of Yerim had inscribed the order of animals with them at the top and worms at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that shifted around depending on current theological debate. But the thing about Yerim, it was kind of a Samarkand sort of trading post in between two places. I've always found those kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're cosmopolitan. They're generally interesting, and stuff's moving and happening.
Yeah, stuff changes, stuff adapts. And so what I had is they were hugely interested in drugs there, and so we had I think they just called it smoke. And I wrote up this huge list of drugs. And this is before we had any game mechanics. So I wrote this up, and I was like, this one slows your heartbeat down, so everything feels so you feel very cold, and everything's going in slow motion, kind of magic. This one lets you see magic. This one just makes you feel good, man. And I sent this over to Chris, and he was like, "This is really good, but we can't publish it." And I think after that, I kind of got a bit put off. Right in that, I was like, "Oh, okay, I understand." So I kind of put that to one side forever, and the game never really moved past the prototype stages.
No, but it was good practice.
Yeah, and that was honest. That was the first time we worked together. I think
so.
In 2006. Bloody hell. Point is, I like drugs. I wrote lots of drugs in here. I just want to see if there's any interesting deep dives. Glimmer is from a different game that I wrote. It's called The Golden Sea. It's a one-page RPG, and it's free to download. Glimmer is sacred MDMA.
And you've got things like blues and the dose, which are used in other sections of the book.
Oh yeah, talk to us about blues.
So blues are a really interesting drug. It allows you to feel sadness. So for the truly jaded Elfir who surpassed emotions, they can get quite addicted to it because it's an emotional connection.
And I think like that was something which we don't mention anywhere else, that Elfir can't feel sad.
No, we mention it slightly in the council section.
Yeah,
one of them's addicted to the blues.
We veer around the idea, but I quite like the idea that the Elfir are so that the average life of a drow is sadness and pain and torment, and the Elfir live such refined lives that they sort of take a holiday in sadness.
Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of really stick it to him. The dose informed the damned Saltash, which again, Saltash, a place you can go in Cornwall. but we wanted to have an arcology which the humans uncovered, which all the bad stuff came out of.
Yeah.
And so the dose is a drug which kept you awake forever. I think we had this back when the Brazacott were dwarves.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned to me every Elder Scrolls game did that.
Yes, every single one.
And so we just vagued them up a bit. And so now the dose is, I think there's something, it displays the human ingenuity, but also their failings in the like the original dose just simply removed your need for sleep. And this means it removes your need for sleep as long as you keep taking it.
Yeah.
And it's like they've got the output, but not quite everything that went into it, and it's become much dirtier and grimier along the way. And we started off. We had the dose and the fix were two drugs. The fix got cut, but they were both designed basically for spy work. And the dose means you never have to sleep, and the fix means you can remold your face into different shapes. Which
became some other spells for
like we've
characters.
got about 20 spells which let you change your face now. And there's a lot of I'm really happy with the drug section because there's a lot of different weird stuff happening there, and a lot of I feel it ties together the different sections of the Spire quite nicely because it's what people want. It's desires.
Yeah, and also, because there is a roaring drug trade in Spire...
Sorry.
Because there is a roaring drug trade in Spire, you've got a lot of criminal activity, a lot of places to make money, a lot of control of areas you can implement with the drugs.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to know what they're moving and why. Rather than just, it is drug.
It is a bag of drug.
Yes, you have a kilo of drug.
Because I can guarantee you, anytime you put a drug in a game, there is one player who will take it.
Yes, happened every time.
Every time. We've also got Cowsudder.
I love Cowsudder.
In Red Row. It was a real challenge, I'll be honest with you. It was a huge challenge because one of the backers who backed us at the buyer pub level insists their name is Psycho Cowty Cow. And I presume that's a name they've chosen, or they had very strange parents. However, Psycho Cowty Cow insisted that they had, and that's cow with a K, insisted that the bar was called the Cow's Udder. And so we had to try and strong-arm that into our fiction.
I think he went really well. It's actually one of my favourites.
I'm happy with it because it let us. From that, we explored the setting and sort of tried to tie it back in and loop it in. So we have the idea of an unmasked Elfir.
Yeah, and we got to look at the kind of other types of Elfir through it.
Yeah, for sure. Ones who aren't just posh.
The Elfir from the homelands, certain factions in that are revealed through Cowsudder.
I think that's kind of the interesting thing. Chris and I have always tried to, when possible, let the fiction infer naturally from itself.
Yeah, for
And like
sure.
it's not natural, obviously, because we made it up, but it's not like we've sat down and go, okay, what are the elves about? I remember, I think, we did that a couple of times where we'd sit down and go, like, why is the Spire here? Let's come up with 20 ideas.
Yeah, rather than just what is the idea, what is the reason the Spire exists.
And so now, but by introducing a thing, we can generally sort of weave that back in and tie it in, and hope to. We're coming from we're trying to come from a personal point of view rather than a omniscient point of view.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's about what you can see when you go there. It's about what you've heard. It's about what you can do with it, rather than an objective viewer watching over the whole thing.
We were very, very certain that we were not writing a history book.
Yeah, because I did very badly at history in high school.
We weren't writing, exactly what's happened at what time. We're focused on the now and the future, which leads to better stories, as far as I can tell.
Yes, and which leads us to the next section. The Spire Director's Commentary podcast is a companion to the Spire RPG and features Grant Howitt and Chris Taylor. The music is by Arokia, hosted on freesound.org and used under the Creative Commons license. To learn more about Spire, explore related products or buy your own copy, go to rowanrookanddecard.com.